Hi, it's Allison Durant coming to you from my studio here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And I thought we could do some acrylic backgrounds today. So some very intuitive, playful, explorative backgrounds. And the way that I love to start my abstract art pieces is by cleaning my brush. I have in front of me my Canson. Oh, this was actually one that my son had done. That's kind of cute that I would open to this page today. He really is starting to pick up my abstract watercolor style with my birds and the golds, and that's really awesome. So just a cute little reminder of him today. This is my Canson mixed media book, 138 pounds, and this is 9 by 12 inches. You can use whatever you like. I recommend, if we're going to do acrylic and watercolor and sort of some more, wet media, it's probably good to have at least 140-pound paper. This is 138. Usually the paper is weighted 90 pounds, 98 pounds, and 140. Those are just more common weights, at least what we can get here in Canada. And I wanted to just start by showing you this background that I had done. This is not a finished painting, but it will be because it's at the stage where I already love it. The background was done because I was using this gray, sky blue, turquoise, just cleaning off my paintbrush. Oops, I forgot this one was wet. But I was just using energy, and I was working on another painting at the same time, which I highly recommend, working on multiple pieces at a time. It just keeps you out of your head, and I like the idea of working on one and then playfully, energetically getting the paint off your brush on the other piece, whether it's paper or canvas or wood panel. And often you'll find the one that's freer, looser, tends to have more appeal at the end, it's kind of cool. So in this particular one, I was cleaning off my brush. I had some metallic acrylic paint in here. I have some collage. So recently I've been inspired to grab a whole bunch of paper bags that I wasn't using. I had purchased them at the Dollarama, for my son's birthday party or something, and they were just sitting around, and I started to do mark making. I really loved the black and white Posca pens on the paper bag, or stamps, whatever you have, but I like personally the look of the paper bag. So you may not, but that is this little collage piece that I had snuck in here. It's a paper bag with some mark making I had done. This one was with my paintbrush. And then this was a piece of my Stay Wet palette. So you can see I have a Stay Wet palette here. I've just refreshed it, even though it looks a little chaotic. I did put in some fluid white, which I didn't realize would spread so much, and I don't totally regret that. I do use white a lot, and this is just sort of where I'm starting today. Use whatever you have. Now, this is a variety of paints that I try several brands. I switch between brands. Not all colors within a brand are created equal. So I just put colors that I really, really love, and some colors that I don't use much that I hope to kind of like branch outside of my comfort zone. I find that to be a really fun challenge. Is when I get into a rhythm of painting, I tend to stick with the same color palette. So I don't often use the browns or the quinacridone gold. I don't use neon straight out of the tube, especially orange. And yeah, this will be really interesting. It's very random. I just grabbed some paints that I wanted to get out of the tube and onto a substrate. So again, this is called a Masterston Stay Wet palette, and it has a lid, so this basically stays wet for a number of days, and I really, really love this when I kind of get in the acrylic painting mode. I am going to be using pretty much everything, whatever you can find. This is like a super old paintbrush. This is Princeton mixed media brushes, this blue line, which I had purchased at Michael's here in Canada. I have flat, kind of like a wash brush. I have an angled brush and a round brush, and I tend to use the round brush a lot, so I buy several of those. I have a skewer or something I can etch into my underlayers. I like working with pencil, and I love water-soluble crayons, so I have a whole bunch of water-soluble pencil crayons. You can use really whatever you have. This is just sort of playful and experimental, and I like to flip back and forth between watercolor and acrylic. Sometimes I combine both. So I'm working on 138-pound paper. Again, if you're working on at least 98 pounds, that will hold the acrylic paint, and if you're using watercolor, that should hold pretty well. And I'm just creating backgrounds so we have something to respond to. So very intuitive, playful, explorative acrylic backgrounds today. And for me, my acrylic paintings are all about layering. So I just think in layers. This is more of a watercolor background. Again, just watercolor play. But when you work in layers, it just gives you more to respond to. So this is sort of a journal that I've done. You can see I was playing around with watercolor. I was playing around with different compositions of watercolor, mark making, similar to what I was doing on the brown paper bag. I was just taking a sheet. I almost feel like this is too thick for collage, but this was just one night. I just felt like sitting down and doing something playful. And on that topic, I can show you what I was up to last evening. So I had recently purchased a set of coil watercolor brush pens. I don't use brush pens in my work. I probably just had one sitting around the house that I had purchased at the store because I thought it was a really pretty color. Just never really got into using it a whole lot, but I recently invested in this coil brand, which has 24 colors, and I'm really, really new to it and can't really, speak to the brand. I'm not affiliated with the brand, but last night I just needed to do something creative that was very much just getting out of my head and testing out the pens. And this was just so fun because I just was playing and not overthinking, and just experimenting with how the pens felt in my hand, what types of marks I like to do, how they layer. You can see you can layer them on top of each other, and there is a bit of a transparency that comes through. Certain colors I just really gravitate towards. And so I highly recommend working out of a journal or just having a daily practice, even if it's just pieces of printer paper, whatever you have, and playing with the supplies you have at home. All of that practice adds up. So these, you can activate them with water. And so I'm just already it's so funny, I'm just kind of changing gears and just playing around. And I really, really love how this looks. This, I've used quite a bit of water. Here I am planning an acrylic painting video, and I'm just like getting stuck in the moment, which, to be honest, is the best place to be stuck these days, where you can just be in the moment. Okay, I'll let that dry, but I really like these koi watercolor brushes for the purpose of relaxation and abstract art. I see that a lot of people probably use them for more realistic art, for cartoons, for illustrations, but the possibilities are endless. And I would even go over top of this with my acrylic paints at some point and kind of leave some of the watercolor showing through, some of those blooms, and that would be a whole new painting to me. Okay, how did I start talking about that? Oh, yes, just the process of creating your own maybe collage papers or journal pages with the intention of play, and going back to it at another date. And when you look back at it, for instance, last night I didn't plan to activate any of this with water, and I'm really loving the way it's turning out. So when you come back with a fresh set of eyes, it's like a whole new artwork that can be explored. And I'm really liking the quality of those so far. So I'm just gonna set that down. And what I want you to do is, if you have any paintings that you are okay to paint over, that's a really good thing to do while we do this exercise today. And I'm gonna do that. I'll make sure I don't go over that one, my son's. And I am gonna take that out because I told him I would frame it. I'm a little bit behind with my motherly creative duties. I'm just gonna set that aside. And this I just can't wait to go back to, but I'm gonna just maybe show you what we could do is just I'm just trying to think of how I want to start. I could start with going over this page just to show you maybe some of the background peeking through. Just trying to decide if I want to take it out of the book because I'll probably be working in this book. No, I'm going to leave it in. Okay, so here I am with my 138 pound paper. In the store, you'll often see Canson 140 pounds, but this Canson brand is really good for what we're doing, but there's also a lot of really great brands out there. I already have paint on my brush, and what I'm gonna do, I recommend wetting your brushes before using them, just so you don't get the paint stuck at that base, because it can be really hard to clean them out. And I'm just going to get that color off, and I'm gonna take my another round brush that I've cleaned, doesn't have any acrylic paint on it, and I'm gonna actually dip into my watercolors first. So I have a set of watercolors here, and you can just use acrylic paints that are watered down or whatever you like. I'll just dip into this opera pink with my acrylic paintbrush and just put that down over here. And what you can see is the black acrylic mark making, that was done with acrylic paint, which is plastic. And so the watercolor is being repelled by the black paint. And so this is just looking and kind of exploring and seeing what happens when you put watercolor over top of marks that have had acrylic. So I dipped into a really vibrant orange, and I'm kind of mixing the watercolor to see what it gives me. This is just all about exploration and play. And I will go to my acrylic paints shortly. Let's just grab maybe another warm color, watercolor. I love this kind of peachy color. Maybe like a red. I don't use red a lot, but getting some red in there. So I'm just working with what's already on my page, and I'm responding to it. I'm just gonna reposition here so I can get comfortable. I'm just gonna dab a little bit of the wet spots off of the black paint that's been repelled off. And I'm gonna just dive into colors with my acrylic paints. And I feel like covering a larger area with my flat brush. Just gonna get some of the water off, and then I'm gonna go into maybe a color that I feel like would be interesting, maybe one that I don't use very much. And I think I'm gonna go in with maybe, let's just see. I'm gonna try and be brave and use this dark brown and just put it right down at the bottom here. And even though I don't care for dark brown, I know I can go over it with another color. I'm just kind of getting it down and deciding there's a reason I don't like dark brown, and this is it. But I think it will be a great neutral when I put my bright colors over top. Okay, and I'm gonna maybe add a little bit of it in this area up here. And so I'm just sort of randomly, I'm not thinking of creating a painting. I'm thinking of repurposing a page of work into a new artwork, and I'm just enjoying the journey of deciding, do I like acrylic paint? Do I like watercolor paint? How do I like working with both of them at the same time? How do I like working on paper? So I'm just exploring, and I now just know I'm craving some brighter colors. I do know I'm gonna try this quinacridone Nico Azul Gold. It's a mouthful. It's a transparent color, and it's like a yellowish brown gold. And it's kind of just, it's almost like a mix of this yellow with my brown. And these layers underneath are starting to dry. And I'm just going to work in an area now with another color, maybe a color I really love this time. So I'm feeling like I'll add, I'm really looking forward to using this color. I think it's called a luminous rose. Let me just do a quick check. Yes, Luminous Rose by Holbein. This is a more expensive paint. It's a heavy body paint. And I'm gonna maybe switch to a smaller brush. No, I'm gonna stay with this one. Just trying to think. And I'm gonna put quite a bit on my paintbrush. And because this is still wet down here, I could explore how it works together, but I think I'm gonna go up here to this area. And my brain is lighting up with serotonin and dopamine right now. I really love that. And it almost reminds me of an animal pattern here, the way it's going over top of the black marks that I had made with my acrylic paint. And they're turning a bit of a purpley blue. I find that really interesting. And now I'm gonna move that color down here. Maybe get a bit more on my brush. I'm gonna wet my brush because it's getting a bit dry. And just seeing what that's like down here. Maybe I'll dip in a little bit more of that one. and go over top of the brown, and it's giving me an interesting purple color. This is really branching out of colors that I don't normally use in my work. So I'm using mostly warmer colors, I think. I'm gonna dip into now this purple, and I want to go with, just trying to decide, I'm gonna add more of this. I think this is Marigold by Golden, or Holbein, I'm not sure, Marigold. And I've put quite a bit on my brush, and I'm gonna go just gently in the middle here. Quite thick, and I'm just really looking at how I'm enjoying putting it on right here. I'm kind of thinking, you know, I'm trying not to be too thoughtful about what I'm doing. I'm just playing and experimenting and trying to push myself out of my comfort zone to come up with something that's unique. Again, these are colors that I don't often work with. I'm just gonna go over this area a bit. And I'm gonna go in, because there's a lot of dark areas, I'm gonna go in with, I think I'm gonna use white. It's not like I don't have enough white on my palette. So we'll go in with a whole lot of white and just maybe lighten up a little bit down here. And it's kind of blending with the brown a little bit. I'm not pushing too hard because I like the look of the white going over the brown, and I like the texture that I'm getting. When I first started painting, I would have stopped at this point thinking, oh my gosh, this is not attractive at all to me. I don't like it. I should just abandon it. But I know to power through because there is beauty in the process and exploring. So right now, I'm actually really liking it more now that I see how the white has pulled down the yellow and the browns. And what I like to do at this point is change it up and either etch into the artwork. Oops, and I see I have a big blob of acrylic paint down here. Before that's on my sweater, I'm just gonna dab it up. So if you have a skewer, because we've done a fairly thick layer of paint over another layer, you can etch in. So what I mean by etching is this. I see where I've etched in over these marks. That's quite interesting. So maybe I want to etch in with, like, I don't know, this shape. And if I liked what I did, I would repeat it. Just gonna see what it looks like over here. And this works while the painting is still a bit wet. That's why I like to work fast. And I do like those marks. I find that really interesting. And I feel like adding in a gorgeous turquoise. So I'm gonna grab a water-soluble crayon. You can use any kind of water-soluble crayon, or if you have these Stabilo woodies, they're really good too. Just looking for a color that you're really wanting to incorporate. I think the purple would look good maybe. I'm just gonna decide. I think I'm gonna use these ones and just kind of hold them together and see. And I almost feel like it's a bit too busy for me. I don't really love that. I might go in with something thicker like the Stabilo Woody at the bottom here and just see what that turquoise looks like. Oh, and I like that. That's quite, I really like that turquoise. I'm gonna maybe use a lighter turquoise, do the same thing. And so I'm just creating interest, and whatever I don't like, I can go back and cover up. So now that I've added in that turquoise, I might just grab a little bit of, I think I'm gonna go with maybe that color in my acrylic paint, that darker turquoise, and maybe adding a bit of white in there. And I'm gonna just use a slightly smaller brush. So I'm gonna dip into my white, and I'm gonna mix it with this blue. And I wanna have it a little bit lighter. And really all I'm doing is just responding to what's in front of me. And I just feel like doing these really big blue marks. And I do like that color. Oh, these are getting to be really, really big. And I have quite a bit of that on my brush. Maybe I'll go above. I'll go here. And I'm purposely trying to leave some of what's going on underneath showing through. And this green is awesome because it's just a mixture of that quinacridone azul gold, the brown, the white, and the blue that I've chosen. So I have that color on there, and I might just do a little bit more. Again, go white and then mix it in here. Just lighten it up a little bit. And maybe kind of going over top with another lighter brush stroke of that same color. And then I'm going to maybe add a little bit down here. And maybe cover up some of the areas down here with that color. And I might do, where do I want to go from here? I have quite a bit of etching on this side. I could try continuing etching in that same pattern, but through here. And I really like that neon pink that came through here. So I'm gonna, because I liked that, I'm gonna keep doing it. So I can always take it out. So I find that really interesting. And I'm going to use, see if you guys can see me okay. So again, this is just kind of like acrylic painting, responding to what's in front of me by doing layers, by etching in with, like, say, the end of your pencil, with a skewer, with the end of your paintbrush. It's just color craving. What colors are you craving next? And I'm just craving this beautiful bright green. I also put an iridescent green that I don't use very much, so in order to use it up, I'm going to mix it in. Because if you have an iridescent paint or a shimmery paint, and if you mix it with an opaque, non-shimmery, non-iridescent paint, then it will sort of take away the iridescence. It's a bit of a mouthful. But I'm just kind of deciding, I want to add some green dots maybe in here. Fairly chunky. That green really stands out over the pink. And then maybe because I know repeating design elements is a principle of art, it will give me more to respond to later if I add those in maybe in another spot down here, but not overdoing it. So, you know, you can look back at this later and decide, do you like it or do you want to cover it up? You can also etch in again, oops, sorry to bump you. You can also etch in to these guys because they are new thick paint over top of that pink. And this I'm using a bit more control. I'm just squinting my eyes and deciding if I like it. Don't really like it, so maybe I'll leave one and I'll go back over top. Yeah, I don't really like that. I'm gonna get rid of it. And then I have decided that I want to add maybe a little bit more of either that green or that turquoise. Oh, and I see gray in here. Gray's nice too. I have quite a bit of paint on my brush, so instead of getting it back, I can try and get it back on my palette by rolling it a bit, but I'm gonna take another background and just with energy, getting that color off. And then I can go right into my gray. Okay, and do I want to go into the gray? I think I'll go into the gray, yeah. I'm just thinking maybe I'll switch, after all that cleaning my brush, I might switch to this angled mixed media brush. And I'm gonna add some gray in here, just a little bit. I'm gonna maybe put a little bit of white in the gray because I know acrylic paint dries darker than when you first put it on. And we could just try maybe some gray marks in here. And I do like the color. I don't know if I like that mark a whole lot. Maybe I'll try a little bit darker. And just playing with maybe a little bit thicker. And I'm just trying to decide. I think I'm gonna do resting space, a little bit of resting space here. So I'm just gonna cover this side. So the beauty, if you're not enjoying something, you can cover it up. Oh. And I can always bring it back in. I kind of like some of that area in here, so just gonna maybe cover that area and then maybe do a little bit of gray in this area here. And am I kind of disappointed I covered some of that up? Maybe a little bit. I missed some of it, but again, I can just play around and maybe add some interest back in. Maybe I'm gonna add maybe that kind of half circle shape. Add some gray in down here. Really lightly, gently in this area. I'm almost not dry brushing, but my brush is not too wet, and I'm really lightly going over some of these areas. And we definitely have more resting space now in certain areas. So as far as what I'm liking, I do miss some of the pink up here, so I can easily add that back in. And how do I want to do that? I think it was this pretty color. So maybe I'll go back to, let's just see, we'll add a little bit of it in. And I find that interesting, just the way the gray is kind of coming through underneath and how it's brighter here. I'm just going to repeat that over here. I'm putting it on quite thick, which will provide an opportunity for etching later. So I do like that, and I might add a little bit of that same kind of mark making, possibly going in a different direction. So I'm just going to turn and go over top of this one. Let some of the gray peek through. And I'm still enjoying the etching up here. I did lose a bit of those marks. I think I'm going to go back in with a thicker, maybe my palette knife, and see if I can etch in that same trio of lines, but maybe larger and thicker. So I'm going to steady my hand a bit and just try and scrape off the paint before it dries. Okay, and I like that. I feel like I've brought that back a bit. And in this area down here, I want to do some etching just to reveal what's going on underneath. So because these lines up here are going up and down, I'm going to go horizontal and just decide if I like that. I don't know if I like that. I think I'll go back and maybe go back over top with that thick pink again. And you can still see the lines underneath, which is interesting. And I really like this area here right now. And I think I just maybe want, I don't know, maybe the lines coming up here a bit. So I'm going to go back to my skewer. And I'm going to just move the foam cord here. And we're going to just maybe come up with, I don't know if that looks maybe too planned. I'll just do that. Okay, and I feel like I want to have more of the orange, maybe towards the middle, moving the eye down a bit with probably smaller marks. So I'm gonna mix this pink with the orange. Let's go back to, it could be bold and maybe a little bit of the neon and a little bit of the marigold mixed with the luminous rose, and just see what we get. And I don't feel I have to mix the whole thing so it's a full solid color. And I'm kind of squinting my eyes, deciding what motion do I want to do. Maybe something like that. and I'm looking to see how I feel. Well, I guess I'm feeling how I feel, not looking to see how I feel. When I look at the next move I've made, this mark making, it's like, how do I feel about it? I'm asking myself, how do I feel after what I've just done? I do feel like I've lost some of that pretty green, but that's okay. I immediately want to add a lighter color over top. So we'll just go with this lighter color. And I'm kind of squinting my eyes. I'm going to do maybe a little bit more of the neon too. That's maybe a bit too neon, so we can always cover that up. Okay, that color is nice. I like that color. You're looking at how are you feeling with the colors you've put down in correlation to what's beside them, the relationship. And, you know, are you feeling something? And I'm wanting to add maybe a bit of orange down in this area, or do I want to add a different color? I'm gonna let that dry a bit, and I might just add that same orange up here, and maybe in between those guys, but not everywhere. And after I've done it, I ask myself, do I want to repeat it? Is it something I liked enough to repeat? It's super, super bright, but I'm okay with that. I can always go over later with a transparent acrylic paint and dial it back. And I feel like now I want to bring back in more of that. I'm just looking at my turquoise and I'm seeing like this would be pretty awesome to bring in those teals. So I'm going to set that brush aside for a second and go back to my thinner brush. And I feel like I've only been painting for, I don't know, not very long, like 20 minutes, and it's been double that for sure. So cool how, you know, time flies when you're having fun, right? And okay, so yeah, I'm not saying what I did. I dipped into this, I don't know what, it's like a deep magenta, a deep violet, a color I don't use much, and I feel like it would look nice kind of carving around this shape. I have a bit too much on my brush, so I'm just gonna kind of carve a little bit in here, not too much, because I like what's going on. Just gonna curve it around here. I think that's enough because I really love this look in here. I kind of want to keep that. And good luck with that, because I often end up saying that and then I'll cover it up. I'm going to add more of that color maybe right here. Trying to kind of make this like almost like a little window where I've etched in. And possibly adding in that same etched image, but going a bit more that way, maybe a bit smaller. And so maybe just like, we'll add maybe some leaves. So what I'm doing is I'm wiping off the excess paint after I've etched. And you can always go back in over it with paint pen. If you don't like that, I think I like that enough. I'll leave it for now, but you can always, again, go back over it and get rid of it. Part of me is wondering if I should have made it come down the other way. Just decided. No, I think I'm going to leave that there for now. And let's go to maybe bringing in more yellow. I have purple on my brush. I'm going to go right into the yellow because it's sort of a bold move, and I like the mix of the yellow and the purple. and just deciding where do I want that to go. Yeah, that's definitely a neutral. And instead of mark making, I'm just kind of bringing that color in. It picked up a bit of orange there, but that's all right. Maybe I'll go into the orange there. I don't know, I almost feel like I don't like the orange, so I'm just gonna go sort of over top of it with like a yellow. I'm gonna get more yellow on my paintbrush, and we're just gonna go, whoop, that's a lot of yellow. A great opportunity for etching with all that yellow. And I'm enjoying that more now. And I'm going to go over top with a lighter yellow, so I'm going to go right into the white. And then kind of see what that gives me. That's super light. I'm almost mixing it right on my paper. I hope you are all doing okay. I'd be so curious to know what you're working on, you know, beside me, as this is just meant to sort of inspire you. It's not meant to be a lesson, really. I mean, it's kind of a lesson, but that's become a very round shape. And I don't know if I like it a lot. We'll just leave it like that though. That yellow does look really nice with those colors around there. And I'm gonna dip into way more white and bring that down with the yellow over here. And just kind of going around some of those greens. And so that lightened up the bottom a bit, and I could add a little bit more of that, maybe on the side here. Let's just see. I really like actually how that's a really nice addition. And you're kind of like stepping back. How are you feeling about it? We've done a lot of mark making, a lot of etching, a lot of thick layers. And again, if you haven't done a lot of etching, this is such a great opportunity, you know, just deciding, you know, what comes through when you're etching. I really like the colors underneath here. And I don't like etching too much. I feel like this painting is really busy for my style, but it's just great as far as a teaching opportunity, this style. I'm gonna just move this for a second and clean off this brush because I have a lot of that yellow. So this is how we create new paintings, this energetic motion. And then this is before, oh, that's cool. I like those colors a lot. And you can even spritz the brush, especially if you're close to finishing your painting, just getting it out on the paper. I'm gonna just switch colors a bit, so I'll just do that. And I'm gonna keep my paintbrushes wet because it's quite dry here in Calgary. And then I'm gonna go back to this and I know I need small white marks. I don't know how much I like that orange in there. I think I'm gonna go with maybe some more brighter pinks and just really trying to decide. Definitely white. So let's just see. I think I'm gonna add slightly thicker. I'm gonna be bold. Just gonna get this color off my brush. I have quite a bit of, oops, I just moved you guys, sorry. Quite a bit of brown in here. I'm just gonna get rid of that. And I have an old white shirt. White does not stay white very long. So I use that sometimes as a rag if I'm needing to get some color out of my brush. Okay, and it's just like looking at this, okay, what color are you craving? I'm craving red, I'm craving turquoise. Just trying to decide. I feel like that bright turquoise would be awesome in here. So let's just see. I think I'm gonna repeat kind of that style of mark maybe in here. I think turquoise or red would look really good in here. Maybe both. So let's just go with a little bit of this dark and I'm gonna mix it over here. Just see what I get. Maybe a little bit more of like that army green color in here. I don't often mix my paints, so it's all kind of learning. And I already know that this is not the right size brush. I think it's going to go on too much of a blob because I mixed the paint with the brush instead of a skewer. So I have quite a lot of pigment on here. I'm gonna just get that off and just see what mark this gives me. And I like that mark. And I'm squinting my eyes and I'm only repeating it if I like it. And immediately I want to lighten it up. And I'm just going to see what that gives me. So I'll maybe lighten it up with a bit of a white turquoise. And I like it. It looks too much like a leaf to me, so I think I'm gonna just go like that. Okay, I definitely don't like that anymore. How do I wanna remedy that? No, I went lighter. I'm gonna go darker. Back to the army green, and I'm gonna do maybe a thicker mark. Okay, and I'm liking that more. Maybe I'm going to do that just a little bit more over here. Almost becoming a solid color in my painting and offering resting space to the eye. So that was unexpected. I did not plan to do that, but I feel like that's where intuitively my the creative side of my brain wanted to go that direction. And I do want to keep a little bit of this area because it's interesting. And so there we go. Just going to smooth this area out a bit. And I wasn't really happy with the orange. I like how that's a pop of orange. So can we bring that back in here? Yes, we can. I love the pop of orange, that little orange there and maybe here. And I'm okay with covering up some of that etching because I can bring it back. And so this is sort of a practice in letting go, because as I'm painting, I'm having this feeling of like, oh, should I have covered that up? And you probably are watching or painting along with me and kind of going through that same, oh, I wish I didn't cover that up. Just going to cover that little bit too, that white. I really like how this is becoming pops of flowers. I love this area here. I think after painting with you all, I don't know, 45 minutes or almost an hour on this painting, I'm finally getting to a place where I'm starting to think I love it. And if you think this was just a piece of paper before, right? Now I like all these little pops, this yellow, orange, light orange, bright orange, barely there orange, and here. And what I think I'm going to do is leave maybe a bigger pop of color. Maybe this one right here will just be a slightly bigger pop of color. And I can always go back in and make that a slightly bigger pop of color. Or will it be this one? What I'm going to do is add it in now. And I'm just going to kind of go in and I'm going to work on the composition a bit, get this green so it's kind of the same green all around. Get that up here a little bit. And again, I can also bring back the colors, this gray. I might just bring this up and then I can bring the gray back in. But my painting, the primary color is becoming this greenish turquoise, which is cool because I did not plan to have a painting that's primarily one color, or sorry, like has a really strong, how do you say, a really strong color in the palette. I usually have multiple colors. I'm gonna just bring in that bright orange maybe right there. So let's bring it back with a paintbrush that's fairly clean. And just deciding what shade, maybe more of maybe a slightly darker, I don't know, we'll see. Just mix in a bunch. Okay, that's a pretty big pop, and I'm gonna add a pretty big pop of color, I should say. And then that gives me more to work with. And I'm gonna cover that one up a little bit more and maybe give myself the opportunity to have like a little bit over there. And so the eye is kind of following this way. Okay, so what was I working with? Was it this one or this one? I'm not sure. I think it was this paintbrush. I'm kind of like And I'm going to etch back in up here that mark, but I went down too far, so let's just fade that out. And maybe I'll bring it back down and around. And do I like that? Maybe too much. There we go. I think I like that better. I want to bring it down and around more. Okay, I think that's where I want to leave that. And again, before this dries, going back in while I have this mix of greens on my brush and squinting my eyes, because that's just one way we can really almost see the contrast better. And I am gonna cover up that area here. And I like this area here, those colors, so. And I'm deciding with this composition, I'm feeling like I do want to continue with the pops of color up here because it's so busy. So I'm going to continue with my green, but maybe I'll use more of a darker green. So let's just see where that takes us. And maybe some brown. I'll be bold and use more of a brown. And I have quite a bit of paint on my brush. Sometimes if I have too much paint on my brush, I'll use my palette knife and just kind of scrape it off into my wet palette, or you might be using an old paper plate that you can throw out later after the acrylic dries, the unused acrylic paint, or you might be just painting right on the paper. And it's taken me a while to kind of get the practice of knowing how much paint to put on. And I'm going to just introduce a little of that dark color. Just a little bit, maybe from the bottom, kind of through here. And maybe just like through here, kind of working my way up. And I'm okay that I'm covering up those green marks a bit. So, and here we go, zeroing in on the bigger pop of orange. And I'm liking the etching here, so I'm going to try not to cover all of that up. And I am just going to start by you can see by adding the darks, you're really bringing out the orange. And I'm just going to cover up that whole side. As far as more resting space, I'm okay with that there. Maybe I took it a little bit too far as I've covered up a lot of the lighter green, but I do want to go across the top. Maybe a little bit of the pink popping through. And am I liking that lavender? Not really. So let's just get rid of that. And I'm really missing that pretty blue. It's almost like a phthalo turquoise, and I do have some golden phthalo green. Oh, and it's starting to dry. Oh dear. Just have to spritz my palette. Can't lose any of that phthalo because it is precious. It's a more expensive green through golden, and I really love that green. And so let's just bring that green back in, and not like a ton of it, but bringing back in kind of through here and through here. And maybe I want to do like that. Okay, I like that. And I'm gonna vary my brush strokes. I'm gonna kind of go this way because I've been doing a lot up and down, so I'm just gonna vary them a little bit. I think I added a little too much phthalo up here. I might put a little in here, almost dry brushing to get the etching coming through and deciding if I like it. There's way too much of that pink now, so I'm gonna go over that and just deciding, again, resting space over here. I'm missing that etching, so I'm gonna go back in and etch. I did lose some of that interesting etching, but that's okay because I can still see it's in there. I feel like there's history now to this painting because I'm talking about having memories of seeing areas that I loved, like etching, and it's all about the journey, right? So when you cover it up and you look back at this painting later, you will remember the marks, the moves that you made that you love, the colors you love. And so I'm gonna go back in with like maybe just trying to decide, maybe a more neutral color. Let's see. Do I want to use a lighter color? What color would look really good next to this? Maybe, this is really tricky now. What colors do I want to use? I know I'm not finished with the dark, so I'm going to go to the dark green again and get rid of that area at the top where there's just a little too much of that phthalo. And squinting my eyes, I'm really loving what's going on in this area. Able to bring a little bit of the etching back in. And this area is not doing a whole lot for me. So we'll just darken that up. It's so funny, last time I did a video like this, I finished covering so much up, and you know, that was the whole point of the lesson, but then later I looked at the painting, I'm like, I like covered up like everything I loved, and so I need to be a little bit more selective maybe. I'm really craving red right now, and I'm gonna put in a little bit of red and just be brave. I'm using a vermilion by Holbein right here. Maybe I'll mix it with a bit of, I don't know what this is beside it, like I'm not sure, more of a violet. And maybe just being bold and adding what kind of a mark. Just getting it down and seeing. You know, I don't like the red now that I've put it on, so I think I'll just use just this pop of red, kind of going over that. And I like that. And because it will dry darker, I might lighten it up a little bit. I don't know if that color is just not quite right. Maybe mixing a bit of neon pink with the red. Okay, I like that much better. And I feel like this is too much, like I was trying to make a flower with the etching, so I like this much better, and I can always etch in again in a way that's more free. So It just made me think of my book, How to Be More Tree, How to Be More Free. And so there we go. And I'm gonna just go back over that green because that red, now I'm coming to the point where I'm being a little bit more intentional, still intuitive, but like kind of intentional on how I want to choose to complete my painting. I really, really love that pop of red. I like that dark in this area, so I might bring some of that more of that darker. I'm not sure what that is. Maybe it's, I probably need a bit more brown, or maybe I'll mix this green with maybe this red. And just see if that's the color. That is the color, and I'm gonna get it on this brush. And just deciding, see if that's the right color. Not quite. Okay, we'll just see. And where do I want to put it? Maybe, okay, yeah, that is the color I was looking for. I'm not sure what color that is. I do like it. And I'm just wanting to put it in here. Maybe a little bit more down in this corner. Maybe a bit of nickel azo gold. I mean, I'm really just playing at this point and not overthinking it. So with every move I make, I'm just asking myself, do I like it more or less? And I'm being very cautious with this brown color. And I'm going to cover up some of that green. I'm really liking how this painting is just pops of color, and I like how my brush went over that slightly dried etching, just really lightly, and I feel like I could add more of that dark brown mixed with the army green, whatever colors this is. And squinting my eyes, I am going to go across here. Okay, I can add a little bit more of this color kind of coming up through the middle if I want. So if you're painting along beside me, obviously something totally on your own, because I know, you know, it's not like I'm doing a step-by-step painting, but hopefully you're kind of taking in the freeness and the exploration, the non-judgment, the play. And this is helping me, because if I wasn't doing a video today, I don't think I would be painting like this. And so we have that pop of red here, but I might dial back some of that color again. I might kind of go in behind and kind of Okay, so I like that more. And a reminder to myself not to cover everything up. I feel like I like this red pop here. I might want a bit more red here, and this just looks a little too intentional. So I might get rid of that. I'm just gonna see what brush can I use. That has a lot of bright on it. So I'm just gonna slip my book aside and get this orange off and go to my red. I'm just gonna spritz my brushes and my palette. Okay. And then we'll go back to adding some red maybe in this upper corner, maybe a little bit of a lighter pink too, I'm starting to see. Now I'm at the point in my journey here, I really need to step back if I was to, you know, try and kind of finish this painting in my own style. How would I complete it is the question, and I often need to step back and come back to it the next day. I just mixed up this really light kind of corally orange. I had vermilion, that orange, that dark orange, and I used white and kind of mixed up a lighter color because I'm just craving some smaller marks in this area. And deciding, squinting, the color's right. I'm not sure about the size of the mark. And am I liking the size of the mark? I don't know. I think right now I feel like I'm trying a bit too hard to pull the painting together, maybe with flowers, and I do like the addition of this color. So just deciding how do I want to incorporate it. Maybe those will also be kind of pops of color after. So I can always paint. I think I'm going to go back and paint around those just because I'm not like loving them, but I like the addition of that color. So again, I'll go back and clean my brush. I'm really liking this sheet because it's really becoming interesting where I'm cleaning my brush off. And I am going to go into maybe this, I don't know what this is, a magenta. Okay, and I really like that. It's like a transparent magenta. And I love how you can see the etching, but it's not like screaming at you that it was like I was trying to etch in. And I like that a lot. I'm going to bring back the green on that side that I lost. And I see the etching over here. I'm going to bring it back a little bit, but I don't miss it. So just see. There we go. This is not doing anything for me here. This green, this lime green. Just gonna kind of go around it. I like to have resting space along the top of my paintings and along the side with not like a ton of marks. And I paint to the edge. I don't use painter's tape, and so if someone was to frame this, you know, it would make it more challenging for them to frame because I didn't leave a ton of space. So if I have that resting space, it just gives more options. I am painting over some of the dark and I miss it, so I'm going to go back and mix in some more of that darker color. And that is the right color. That's more of an army green. And so I'm just gonna kind of go up here. Sorry if I'm moving my page around. I often teach, well, I don't teach, I usually do watercolor videos, so it's just getting in a very different rhythm here, which is learning for me. Okay, super happy with the way this is turning out. I feel like it's really interesting. It's been fun. I see that the etching up here, I'm just not liking that because it takes away from my pop of color here. And I'm kind of squinting and looking at the way the pops of color are going and deciding, do I want to keep that green there? Probably not. I might add in that pink, could possibly go up here. If I don't like it, I can just remove it. And you can kind of do like, I like that pink there. It's sort of like a random flower maybe, but it's not trying to be a flower, if that makes sense. And I'll probably do another one maybe in here because I'm really loving that color, which is just like a random mix of neon orange, vermilion orange, and white. So I'm really getting chunky, my brush kind of chunky, and there we go. I like that. And then I might have to decide how many I want down here. So right now I'm going to cover this back up so I have a better idea of seeing it. I could make a little rose in that one. I could etch in, which I think would be really cool. And I just have to figure out where I want my center, the focal point. So let's go back. Good luck finding this color again. This is going to be hard. Let's see. It's a good neutral anyway. Okay. Definitely a neutral gray in there. So yeah, I think I'm going to put maybe 1, 2, like 3 roses in here. So I'm just going to cover this up for a second. Ideally, I would wait until it was dry because it's sort of, when I'm trying to cover up, it's mixing in with what's on my brush. But that's okay. This gives me an opportunity to kind of etch in here. I could try and etch in one of my roses. I might just take a pencil and see what that would look like. And do I like that? It's interesting. I could leave that kind of beneath. Could leave some of it. Yeah, I actually don't mind that etched in, and I can thicken it up a bit because I like it without putting a hole in my paper. So I'm just not really thinking of making it an actual rose. I'm just kind of doing like this horseshoe motion and scraping paint. Okay, I'm really starting to love this painting. And I am going to add more of that pink, I think. Just deciding, you know, I might just call it here and, okay, no, I'm not ready to call it yet, but I am going to finish pretty soon and then sit with it and then finish it at another time when my eyes are fresh. but it's getting really close. So I'm getting more of that phthalo color that I've lost over here, and I'm just going to bring that down a bit. And it's very, very light. And deciding if I want to bring it, I actually think I want to bring that in front through here. So again, I'm squinting and really slowly doing brush marks that feel comfortable. My brush is loose in my hand. And I'm going to bring in more of that. I'm just going to put it right on my finger, that army green, and kind of do that up there. Maybe a little bit more right here. So I love finger painting, but I don't like the toxicity, so I do wear gloves. And this area is really pretty. I might brighten that up. But right now I need to focus because I'm kind of distracted. So I have this phthalo green on my brush, and I might just mix it in with another, just mix it in a little bit with the turquoise. And deciding maybe I just want to loop it there. I haven't really done too much of that looping other than with the etching up here. So I could just kind of do that. And I love the idea of carving in around it. And maybe just some lines kind of coming out. And not liking all the lines, so it's kind of a matter of like, okay, you've been painting a while, when do you stop to rest, have a rest break, because that's really important. I'm just going to bring that back in there with a different shade, and I like that darker shade, so I'm going to put that in maybe here and here. And up here, maybe again. And where do I see? I'm going to do a little bit more of that, just so it looks more intentional. Like that, getting close, and then in here. I almost wanted to kind of put this around the rose a little bit, that abstract rose. So I might just kind of loosely do that. And I'd love to see, though, from your standpoint, how this is looking. I don't know if I enjoy how I did that. But the whole point of this video is, again, just to get you to work on something, not give up on it when it gets to that, they call it the ugly teenager phase, just to keep powering through, because you will learn to love what you're doing. It just takes time and practice and turning off judgment in your head. I'm going to etch in with some small marks, and I know I need to call it because I've been on here a long time. I just felt like doing some small marks in here. Even do some over that rose, because you can always get rid of them as long as you don't put a hole in your paper. But this is pretty good paper. I mean, this is 138 pounds. And you can see I'm kind of changing some of the marks. Trying to add in a few marks up here. And add in marks down here. No. Maybe over here. Just seeing what areas allow me to do the etching. I think I want to get rid of that. Okay, so I know it's time to call it because I keep making moves and I know I'm getting a bit tired and not enjoying the process as much. I'm kind of really excited to finish it and I'm trying too hard. So I'm going to probably bring back in that color in a bit. Bring back that kind of pretty, I'm going to add more of that magenta. Bring that back in. There it is. And just again, maybe a bit more resting space with that color along the edges of the painting. And probably a little bit in here. Okay, and then I think I'll probably call it before I do something I really regret, like paint over the whole thing. I've been known to do that. And so I really hope you got inspired by this video somehow. I really appreciate you being here. I hope that you find an old piece of art on paper and you feel brave to go over it, just like, you know, here's, let's see here. I'm just gonna grab this paper that I was cleaning my brush off on. And before I leave, I just wanna show you how I create new paintings. This will be a beautiful painting at some point because I am cleaning that gorgeous kind of fluorescent coral off on this blue cool background, the blues, the greens, the whites, the grays. And this will give me so much opportunity. It's a great way to practice mark making. So if you're cleaning your brush and you really want to practice mark making, what you do is you want to get off thick paint and get that thick paint off, roll it off, get as much out as you can. Sometimes I need to wet the brush and really get the page wet and just get it into those cotton fibers. And then I'll be ready to use my brush cleaner. So it's just, there's always way more paint than you think. It's a bit of a nuisance, but it's just great to get it out of your brushes. You'll have your brushes last way longer and it's better for the environment. Okay, so we'll set that aside. And, oh no, I have to clean this one. Let's just get another one. This is where I was practicing. It's a very pretty color. You'll find the motion you use to clean your brushes, when you start to really get comfortable with letting go and just with the intention of not painting anything but cleaning off the brush, you'll find yourself eventually painting a painting and using that same brush stroke and energy. And it's just really a matter of practice and letting go and remembering it's just paper. And I'm going to take this one. Like that, isn't that cool, that color? That's really, really awesome. And you can practice mark making. If you do this on a page that's like 98 pounds or printer paper or dollar store paper, envelopes from the mailbox, you will have collage paper to use for future. So this here, I mean, this is just like amazing. You could do a whole little painting in here. Very beautiful. So getting that color out. And let's just spray it again. This one, putting it right in there, right in that area that meets the metal part. Forget what the technical name for that is. I use an old rag or a paper towel just to kind of get the rest of the paint out. This one's got quite a bit in it. And again, just instead of it going straight down the drain, I mean, I still find, you know, I really think of the environmental impact of painting, but you kind of have to, if we all do our part. So last but not least, this paintbrush. And when I come back to this, I'll remember what I had painted. I will also remember, oh, like these are colors that I would never use in my painting. I mean, when you're cleaning your brushes, you probably have quite the color hue on each if you're really kind of exploring colors. And so it's just giving you a new starting point. And this page is pretty full, so I'll just set that aside and go back to this one and just spritz my brush and find the edge. And when you feel like you've gotten most of the paint out, again, giving just a final spritz of I'm pretty firm with this back and forth motion and getting it right into the fibers of this old shirt. Dip it into my water and I'll let this rag dry and I'll reuse it. And I'm gonna wash these under the sink. And I also love to use, this is a great brush cleaner. It's called the Masters brush cleaner. So I'm just going to get them all wet and really lather it up. You can just see all the paint coming out. And I'll put the lid on. I do know I let one unfortunately dry the other day. I was so excited about painting. And this is like something I'm always sad to come back and find my brush. Needing to revive my brush. It's doable, but it's tricky. This Masters brush cleaner is pretty awesome. Anyway, I won't keep you on video to watch the intricacy of me cleaning my brushes, so I think I'm just gonna finish off there. This has been a really long video. I appreciate you all being with me, and I will see you soon.